The request that Jennifer Lawrence refused to indulge before filming The Hunger Games may seem like standard Hollywood practice, but once you hear Lawrence's reasoning for turning it down, it will all make sense. It's pretty common for filmmakers to ask actors to change something about themselves to better fit a role. Maybe they'll have to cut or dye their hair, or wear some kind of prosthetic. Sometimes actors will gain or lose a considerable amount of weight, and some even make their physical transformations as much a part of the marketing of a film as the performance. Like when Matthew McConaughey lost 50 pounds to play a dying AIDS patient in Dallas Buyers Club. When Jennifer Lawrence was cast as Katniss Everdeen, the bow-toting hero of The Hunger Games, producers had a very specific idea of how they wanted her to look in the role. She had no problem dyeing her blonde hair a darker brown hue to match the character's description in the books, but there was another change that she refused, and for good reason. In an interview with Sci-Fi Now from 2013, Lawrence explained that there was one request that was just too much for her to agree to. Surprisingly, executives relented and kept the young star on board without requiring the change.
I volunteer as tribute!
To be clear, this wasn't laziness on Lawrence's part, or some kind of diva demand. She completely changed the structure of her body training in archery for the film, broadening her shoulders and even lengthening one arm. And Lawrence is known for really giving her all to roles, learning to skin a squirrel for Winter's Bone, and training in ballet for Red Sparrow. Lawrence took a stand with the Hunger Games producers over a request that's sadly all too common for women in entertainment, and the young actress simply wasn't having it. She was asked to lose weight and refused. Lawrence told Sci-Fi Now that she was asked to lose 10 pounds and relayed her reply, "We have control over this image. We have control over this role model. Why would we make her something unobtainable and thin?" Lawrence argued that lots of women, but especially young girls, would look up to Katniss, and it would be better to present her as healthy and strong, rather than rail thin. The actress added, "I was very adamant about that, because I think that our industry doesn't take enough responsibility for what it does to our society, about having these unrealistic expectations, and I don't want to be part of that." Considering that by the time the movie was made, The Hunger Games was one of the most popular young adult series of novels ever, Lawrence was absolutely right that the screen portrayal of Katniss would have a big impact on the young fans who already admired the hero.
They must be very proud of you.
It's true that actors are often held to wildly unrealistic expectations, forced to shape their bodies into what producers think audiences will find most aesthetically appealing. While sometimes that does indeed make sense for a particular role, more often than not, particularly for women, it's just a matter of buying into the old adage that sex sells. Unfortunately, that often means engaging in restrictive diets and intentional dehydration to obtain the cut look common in superhero films. In other words, actors are literally altering their bodies for roles, to the degree that it could potentially have an adverse effect on their health. And while that may seem admirable from an artistic standpoint, it's kind of ridiculous from a human standpoint. Some of the damage caused could be permanent. It's also worth noting that there's a big difference between a single extreme change for one film and being forced to repeat it for multiple sequels. McConaughey could go back to a regular lifestyle after Dallas Buyers Club because it's a standalone film, but franchise film stars have to reckon with repeatedly putting their bodies through tremendous strain. Sure, losing 10 pounds for the Hunger Games probably wouldn't have led to long-term health effects for Lawrence, but it's a slippery slope. It's fascinating when actors change themselves so completely, but it should be entirely up to them, and never because of studio pressure. Good on Lawrence for making her stand, and good on the studio for actually listening.